and I am out also. God bless you.
The Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network, WQOM Natick, WHIC and W225AR Rochester, W257ER Greece, WLOF Elma, W203AW Fredonia, WMTQ Elmira, WHVM Owego, WTMI Fleming, WQHE Oil City, WMIH Geneva, W221DI Erie, WGGO Salamanca, W263CZ Olean, WLGU Lancaster, and around the world on iCatholic Radio and iCatholic Music.
The Simple Truth, rising up to explore the difficult topics of real life. Join us as we proclaim the good, the true, and the beautiful with the simple truth of Jesus Christ and His Holy Catholic Church through Scripture, tradition, and the Catechism. And now, your host, Jim Havens.
The Simple Truth, where we proclaim the life-giving reality of Jesus and His Catholic Church. We consecrate everything to the Sacred Heart of Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the pure, strong heart of Saint Joseph. It is Throwdown Thursday, where we focus on themes of spiritual warfare and the real challenges that are before us, all to better understand the battles that we are in, to actively, effectively engage in fighting the good fight, to participate with the grace of God that is being lavished upon us, and to share in the victory of Christ now and for all eternity. Our guest today is Steve Karlen. He's a Catholic husband and father of 5 and campaign director for 40 Days for Life. You can find out a lot more about the great work of 40 Days for Life by going to the website 40daysforlife.com. And he's also co-author of a new book with Shawn, Carney. It's entitled What to Say When, the complete new guide to discussing abortion, how to change minds and convert hearts in a brave new world. You can get it at 40daysforlifegear.com. That's 40daysforlifegear.com. And also, he's going to be in Buffalo, New York tomorrow. So if that's your listening area, go out and see Steve Karlen and be with him there tomorrow, Friday, October 28th, 4 p.m. He's going to be outside of Buffalo Women's Services. That's the one at 2500 Main Street, downtown Buffalo, 2500 Main Street, downtown Buffalo, 4 p.m. tomorrow. Also at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow, he'll be in Kenmore at a Brown Scheitel Post, 3354 Delaware Avenue in Kenmore. And then on Saturday, October 30th, this Saturday, he's going to be in Syracuse at 10 a.m. at the Planned Parenthood there, 1120 East Genesee Street. Then Rochester at 2:30 p.m. outside of the headquarters of Planned Parenthood there, 114 University Avenue in Rochester. And then in Niagara Falls at 6 p.m., 750 Portage Road. So a lot going on with Steve Karlen in Western New York and Central New York in the next couple of days. So hopefully you can get out there and be with him there on the front lines, especially if you've never been out there before. If you are listening in Buffalo or Syracuse or Rochester or Niagara Falls or anywhere near there and you've never been outside to pray outside of an abortion center, this is a perfect opportunity to do so. We'll mention these dates and times again later in the show, but just so you know, he's coming to your area tomorrow and Saturday if you're in those areas. So Steve Karlen, it is great to have you with us today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Outstanding. It's a great blessing to have you here with us, and a great new book on how to discuss abortion and effectively change hearts and minds. It's a terrific new addition to the genre. So I was kind of thinking it through and looking at the books that I've had, and some of the ones that I've enjoyed: Love Unleashes Life by Stephanie Gray, Persuasive Pro-Life, Trent Horn, The Case for Life, Scott Klusendorf, And then you got a bunch by Randy Alcorn. And then a friend of mine even gave me this one, which is before my time, but I'm very intrigued to take a look at it. It's Dr. and Mrs. Wilkie, a classic, I'm sure, Abortion Questions and Answers. Certainly Dr. Kreeft has written a bunch, along with many others. So it's a very important genre, and you and Shawn Carney have given us a good, solid update. Tons of great footnotes in here, statistics, quotes, references. I was using a quotation from here to reference in a show that I was doing with someone yesterday. Very good stuff to go through, to just digest it all, have it in there, have it on hand. Very, very important. And chapter 1, Go on Offense. I just want you to unpack some of this for us. You say, stick to the basics. Life doesn't need defending, but abortion does. Remember these 3 points to keep your abortion discussion on track no matter what. Number 1, keep your cool, but don't be a wimp. Number 2, don't let abortion advocates distract you. Number 3, make abortion supporters play defense. Speak to some of this for us. Help us understand.
Well, I think most people who are people of goodwill, whether you're Christian or Catholic or anything else, you recognize intuitively that abortion is wrong. There's never a reason why we should be taking the life of an innocent child. And science is on our side, philosophy is on our side, all of the facts are on our side. And yet sometimes I think we feel a little bit reluctant. We feel like we're on our heels a little bit, probably because of what we're up against. Silicon Valley, Hollywood, Wall Street, big media. Everybody with any influence on the levers of power in our society is against the pro-life movement. And so sometimes I think we feel like we're playing defense a little bit. Like we have to be like, well, I'm pro-life, but I'm a reasonable pro-lifer. And what we wanted to do with this book is to give people the one thing that we're lacking in this movement, which from time to time can be confidence. We're not the ones saying it's okay to kill a child. We see right now the heartbeat legislation in Texas, and you've got mainstream politicians, mainstream media outlets coming out and attacking that legislation, saying we need to stop more beating hearts. That is not a reasonable position, and we want to give folks the courage and the confidence that they can articulate the pro-life message without feeling like it's some sort of fringe position, because it's not. The majority of Americans are in fact pro-life, and that's a really critical thing, particularly given what you mentioned as one of the subheads of that chapter, one of the subpoints, which is don't give in to distractions. Everybody knows that abortion is wrong. Everybody's clear that you don't end the life of a child, and so that's where we see the abortion industry and its advocates throwing out really some bizarre new talking points. They talk about pro-lifers as though we're, quote, forced birth, whatever that is supposed to mean. And they bring in these weird ideas of, we need to kill more babies so we can change the weather through climate change prevention. All of these things are very strange, and they're almost always meant to be a distraction from the grisly reality that abortion, if it's successful, kills a child.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, it's such a key thing to always keep in mind in these discussions, to not get distracted. Keep coming back to the main point, which is, as you're laying out there, the scientific fact, and also the philosophical principle, I guess you can say. It's just natural reason to say, look, if we have an innocent human being, we ought not be murdering innocent human beings. Every innocent human being has an inherent right for life. It's really that simple. And if we can just stick to those arguments, that's really so much of the battle right there. You say, quote, many well-intentioned abortion advocates have never thought much about what abortion really is. They've merely bought into the vague euphemisms and slogans like choice, reproductive rights, and privacy. And you also say later on in the book, you say most abortion supporters don't actually know that much about abortion. So if we know the basics and stick to the basics, in that sense, it's really quite easy. And that brings us to where, I definitely want you to drill down on the main point for us. And that's chapter 3, Life Begins at Conception, meaning fertilization. Lay out the basic objective science that we need to share with people.
Well, this is something that is really not controversial outside of an abortion debate. Your medical textbooks, college level, university level, grad school level, they all make it very clear. It's page 1, life begins at conception. The embryo, even from that first cell as a zygote, is a new, unique, and distinct human life. And that really, I think in many ways, could be the book right there, that once life begins, almost everybody agrees you should not kill that life or end that life. But unfortunately, we are called to make that case. There are some folks who, for political reasons or because they've got a vested financial interest in the abortion industry, will try to say, well, you know what, we don't really know when life begins. Now, I think that's kind of an interesting and a specious argument in and of itself, because any other scenario, if you're not sure whether you're dealing with a living human being, you err on the side of caution. If you go hunting and you're in the woods and you're not sure if it's a deer or a turkey or a human being, there's not a jury in the world that would say, he didn't really know what he was shooting at, so it's no big deal. And so we want to make that case. It's not terribly difficult to do. Once conception takes place, once fertilization takes place, you've got a new, independent, growing human being. There's no way to make the case that it's part of the mother's body. When you hear this, my body, my choice, it is not the mother's body, because it's different DNA. You have a different heartbeat. You've got different fingerprints. You have every different signature or identifier that an individual, unique human person has is present in that unborn child. So there's really no question about the matter.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very good. And you bring up something when we're talking about just the basic science of this, and also just the flat reason on this, and then we think about what's coming up with the Supreme Court. It does bring, I think, a lot of reasonable hope for us, because these are people that are supposed to be really looking at this reasonably. The court pretty much punted in 73 Roe and Doe when it came to the science. They acted like it was inconclusive or something. So the court is going to have to revisit the science, and it's hard to believe that they're not going to simply concede and make clear that the science is what the science is, and we cannot kill innocent human beings, innocent human persons, and they're going to reflect that in their decision. Are you very hopeful about what is going to be taking place here with the Supreme Court in the coming months?
I'm excited about that it's being taken up, because this is really the first time in 30 years that we've had the opportunity to take on Roe straight on. I think it's a flip of the coin. You never know. These Supreme Court justices are like NFL draft picks. You hope for the best, but you don't know if they're going to be a bust or not. And we just haven't seen enough of them yet to really be able to make a prediction. So that's why I think it's so critical that Christians and Catholics everywhere hit their knees in prayer over these next few weeks, so that the judges and the justices will do the right thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got to believe that there's so many graces being poured out, all the prayers over all the years, and they're going to be applied, and they're being applied to these justices as they are weighing the science, just as we're talking about, this simple science of this. But yes, we got to keep praying. We got to keep pushing, keep working. You can go to 40 Days for Life. As we hit the break here, feel free to go there, check out all the locations, see if there's a location near you that you can go and visit this weekend. We'll be right back on The Simple Truth with Steve Karlen. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Rick Paolini here, thanking Margaret Mary from Salem, Massachusetts, $200. Thank you. And Anthony from Westwood, Massachusetts, $250. Thank you so much. We now need $4,713. I know it can be confusing to our listeners, but we started the day needing $39,403 to make our goal. We broke it down into two segments for today. We wanted to raise $5,000 this morning. We did. This afternoon, we wanted to raise $12,000. We need $4,713 more to make it to that $12,000 mark. So please continue. When that happens, we should be needing around $20,000 tomorrow. And I'm sorry for confusing somebody if I did confuse you, but regardless of the fact, we need $4,713. 1-877-711-8500. We only have until 6 o'clock tonight. So please, can we raise at least $2,500 this hour, this 4 o'clock hour, the simple truth? 1-877-711-8500. Please give us a call. Can you give us a gift at the mission partner level? That's $420 or $35 a month. Can you give us a sustainer level? $240. 1-877-711-8500. Come on, we've been doing great. Let's not stop. 1-877-711-8500. 711-8500. That's the number to call. I have to go now. These are very, very short, but you have all the time in the world within the next couple of minutes to call. Please call. Thank you.
Simple Truth. Our guest today is Steve Karlen. He is campaign director for 40 Days for Life, 40daysforlife.com. Also co-author of a new book with Shawn, Carney. It's what we're talking about today. What to Say When, the complete new guide to discussing abortion, how to change minds and convert hearts in a brave new world. You can get it at 40daysforlife.com, specifically 40daysforlifegear.com. In the book, Steve, you go through several different objections that one might hear when they're discussing abortion. So we're sticking to what is most important, but objections start coming our way. So you've already hit one of the popular ones: bodily autonomy. My body, my choice is the mantra. You have a whole chapter dedicated on that, so people can really go further in depth on that there. But chapter 5, can abortions be medically necessary? You make some very important distinctions in this chapter. Let's start with, can you delve into this lie for us? Abortion as healthcare, that abortion is healthcare and we should just be accepting it as healthcare. Help unpack that one for us.
Yeah, we've really seen, I would say, the last 15 years or so, that become a major abortion industry talking point, that, abortion is healthcare. And it's a strategic move on their part, because nobody's against healthcare. Everybody wants better healthcare. It's something we are all talking about. In the book, we talk about how, sometimes people even talk about it too much. Your aunt is having a surgery, and at Thanksgiving dinner, you're getting all the grisly details of that surgery, because people love the miracle and the wonders of modern medicine. And so the abortion industry has decided, if we can just lump abortion into this sort of big category of healthcare, then the public, which has been very reluctant to embrace abortion, even after nearly 5 decades of it being legal, if they can just declare it healthcare by fiat, then everybody will get on board. But you mentioned distinctions, and there's a key distinction that has to be made, which is that when you talk about healthcare, you are talking about restoring health or preserving the health of a system in the body that's not working quite right. If you've got heart disease, you want the healthcare to restore the circulatory system. If you've got a respiratory issue, that's a system you want fixed. And abortion, in sort of the greater realm of what they call reproductive healthcare, is really the only case in which it's the exact opposite. You take the healthy, functioning reproductive system of a woman's body and you try to thwart it or to break it. And that is not just not healthcare, but it's actually the exact opposite, the antithesis of what healthcare is.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and you go through 3 different points here also in this chapter on can abortions be medically necessary, where, yes, you're saying that in recent years, this assertion that abortion is healthcare has become one of the abortion lobby's favorite talking points. And this point 3, I'd like to have you speak to, where you say it bulldozes the opposition, that the abortion lobby isn't content to merely make abortion mainstream. It also wants to crush dissent, that the assertion that abortion is healthcare is often used to push for legislation requiring religious hospitals to provide abortions, health insurance plans to pay for abortions, pro-life medical personnel to perform abortions. It's a way for them to really push forward, because after all, if it's just healthcare, well, then all of these places need to be part of it. They need to provide basic healthcare for people. Can you speak to that for us a bit?
We really saw, I think, when President Obama passed the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, I think we really saw that door thrown wide open, where you saw, these lawsuits against the Little Sisters of the Poor, the enforcement. They were going to make Catholic nuns pay for birth control. And now it's really become a situation where the conscience of pro-lifers is seen as something to be crushed. I can think of my doctor here in Madison, Wisconsin, where I live, great pro-life doctor, and he was speaking at it's like a city council meeting or before the legislature, some group of influential elected officials, and he was explaining, some of the work that he does to support poor people, providing them with free healthcare, something that liberals and conservatives, Catholics and secular people, we all agree it's a great idea to give health care to the impoverished. And one of the legislators there told him, you know what? we need to have, more access to abortion. And she's sort of laying out her vision for this unrestricted abortion on demand. And my doctor said, the only way to accomplish what you're saying is you would have to force doctors to do abortions. Otherwise, they would lose their medical license. And that legislator looked at my doctor and said, yeah, I know. And so this is not an isolated incident. This is sort of what I think is a bit of a strategic and coordinated plan. Your insurance has to cover abortion. Your doctors have to perform abortions. There is no room for dissent whatsoever. And it's a strategy to try to overcome the fact that even 50 years almost after Roe v. Wade, the American people have still not accepted abortion on demand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so much that is so good packed into here. Again, the book is called What to Say When, The Complete New Guide to Discussing Abortion, How to Change Minds and Convert Hearts in a Brave New World. We're talking with Steve Karlen, campaign director for 40 Days for Life. You can get the book by going to 40daysforlife.com. You address many different objections in here. You do a whole chapter on rape, which is very good. Highly recommend the book just for people who are maybe concerned or fearful about talking to people and not sure how to handle that topic when it comes up. There are some simple things that you can know to handle that quite calmly, eloquently, and very charitably. And so I really, again, highly recommend the book. But I want to go to, you have a few chapters in here that I really think are kind of an update to the genre, where very much needed. One area here in chapter 7 on climate, population control, and abortion, you really get into the details of this and help people to see what's really going on here. What are the most important points you want to share with us on that?
Well, I think this is a case where we need to recognize that this idea of abortion to save the planet is something of a superstition. We get into this chapter. I think it's for a dark topic. It's a little bit of a fun chapter because it was sort of inspired by a climate crisis town hall forum that Bernie Sanders did on CNN a couple of years ago. And he was asked a question of, everyone's beating around the bush. We've got a climate catastrophe. We're on the brink of a catastrophic climate change. And will you embrace abortion as a means to reduce the global population and to address this climate crisis? And Bernie Sanders, without reservation, enthusiastically said, yeah, we were going to expand abortion, and it's another way that we can tackle the climate crisis. And in many ways, we in the book, we go back and we look at a culture in Mexico where the site of the largest excavation of the remains of human sacrificed children ever took place. And the scientists looked at, why did you see this mass human sacrifice? And it was an El Nino year, and the fishing routes were disruptive. The wildlife were disrupted, and they didn't have enough to eat because the weather had changed. And so they killed all these children. And so we sort of make the point in this chapter that as progressive as Bernie Sanders styles himself to be, he is still embracing the most ancient of superstitions, which is that you can change the weather by killing babies. And we get into the whole issue of population and why our population of anything, the crisis is that we don't have enough people being born into our world anymore. But we really like to get into it because it's said that human beings are our greatest natural resource, and I don't always like to refer to human beings as a resource. I think they're beyond that. But we if we're going to solve things like a climate crisis, it's going to be human beings who are coming up with the ingenuity to do it, the research that gets it done, putting their God-given talents into action to solve problems. People themselves are never the problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a concern, a big concern as well, that when we have this ideology about people who are in power able to say some life is not worthy of life, that we can decide which innocent human beings we're going to say can be killed and murdered if we want to, and which ones not, just depending on who's in power and what we deem acceptable. If that's an ideology that is advancing, and that is an ideology that is that is popular, obviously that's why abortion is what it is. And if that's the case, and it is, what happens as these technologies continue to emerge? You again do a great job getting into contraception, in vitro fertilization in here, and these are areas where technology is already being used in such horrible ways based on that bad thinking, that bad ideology. It's very concerning when you think of what if that ideology continues and the technologies continue to advance. What can you speak to us in terms of, anything with respect to the technologies? Again, you do a great job handling the contraception issue in here, knowing that is something that a lot of people have. Even pro-life people, otherwise pro-life, may not understand what's going on with contraception. I do have this little book here, Randy Alcorn. I highly recommend it. It's a great one, and it's just called Does the birth control pill cause abortions? And he was a guy that was skeptical, didn't believe it, a Protestant guy, and he said, well, I'm going to try to debunk that. And as he did the research, he realized, yeah, it does. I've got to admit it. And he lays it out there. But again, you don't need that book, really. All you need is this new book, What to Say When, because they lay out the facts very simply for you. But what stirs in all that? What would you like to address for us?
Well, I think those two chapters, the one about contraception and the one about artificial reproduction, those are sort of the two where we recognize we might not be preaching to the choir here. This is a pro-life book. It's for pro-lifers to equip them to make the case. But as you mentioned, not every pro-lifer grasps the problem with contraception. If we want to reduce abortions, we should reduce the so-called unwanted pregnancies, and contraception can do that, they'll say. Or, with in vitro, you've got an infertile couple and this new technology. I guess it's not that new anymore, but there are new versions of it. It helps them bring babies to the world. What could be more pro-life than that? And so these are really the two chapters where we've got to make the case, even to many of them, many people, many readers who are perhaps on our side when it comes to abortion and the wanton destruction of human life. And so I think it's important for us to recognize that both of these things, contraception and artificial reproduction, they sort of look at human life as a commodity. You can get rid of it or prevent it when you don't want it. And if you do want it, you can go manufacture it in a laboratory. And both of these are harmful because both of them inherently depersonalize the child in question, make it not a human being who's the fruit of married love, but rather a product to be acquired like a new car or a home or something at a department store. And that's it's a misguided anthropology. There's a lot of problems there. And when we sort of extend that philosophy, that worldview that drives contraception and artificial reproduction, we see every sort of different abuse of human dignity that you can come across. Animal DNA being mixed with human DNA. Didn't make a lot of headlines in the mainstream news, but some of the research that the National Institutes of Health were doing, where they were killing babies and grafting their scalps onto rodents, things that sound like they're straight out of science fiction, but the science fiction is becoming more and more a reality every day. And so we want to nip it in the bud by getting to the heart of the issue, the root of the matter, which is the proper anthropology of what is a human being and how do we value human beings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it also shows us how entrenched this horrible ideology is, this horrible idea that, this lie of abortion, as I say, is so entrenched into our institutions. You see it in the medical institution here, where decades ago they redefined what pregnancy was, basically as a lobby to get around actually saying that birth control pills and devices, hormonal devices, were actually causing abortions, because they were saying, well, they're just contraceptive. And if we can say that pregnancy doesn't begin until implantation, then if the device would then kill the embryo, kill that small child before implantation, then we wouldn't say it's an abortion. We just don't have to say anything about it at all. But the fact is that life begins at conception, fertilization. That's the scientific fact. And we know that a new human being begins, right? A new, completely new DNA, as Steve was explaining to us earlier. And again, back to the main point and drill down on that. But it is entrenched, and we've got to share the truth on this. We'll be right back with Steve Karlen. Stay tuned.
I'm back again asking you for your support for Catholic Radio. We still need $4,713. So if we can get a few calls right now, 1-877-711-8500. It would be such a big help. 4,713 is what we need to reach that $12,000 goal to position us to finish up tomorrow very quickly, very strongly. 1-877-711-8500. If we get that phone ringing again like it did before, that was great. 4713 is what we need. Can we knock out that 713 with 2 or 3 phone calls right now? If you gave it the 420 level, the mission partner level, $35 a month, 2 of those would take that right out of the picture and drop us below $4,000. What can you do to help us doing so well today? We need $4,713, but we only have an hour and a half to do it. Thank you. Whatever that call is, thank you so much for your support of Catholic Radio. There's another one, 1-877-711-8500. Come on now. Don't be shy. Keep the phones ringing. 4,713 is what we need. I only have 30 seconds left here to talk to you right now because we're only going during the breaks because we don't want to break into our regular programming. And that's for your benefit. So please give us a call for our benefit. 1-877-711-8500. That is the number to call. I'll be back. Please give us a call. 4713 is what we're looking for. God bless you.
Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with our guest today, Steve Karlen, Campaign Director for 40 Days for Life, 40daysforlife.com. He's also co-author of a new book with Shawn, Carney, What to Say When, the complete new guide to discussing abortion, how to change minds and convert hearts in a brave new world, 40daysforlifegear.com to get the book. Steve is also going to be in Buffalo, New York tomorrow on Friday, October 28th. 2 locations. At 4 p.m., he'll be outside Buffalo Women's Services, 2500 Main Street, downtown. At 6:30 p.m., Brown Scheidel Post, 3354 Delaware Avenue in Kenmore. On Saturday in Syracuse, he'll be at the Planned Parenthood there at 10 a.m., 1120 East Genesee Street in Syracuse, 10 a.m. on Saturday. Rochester, 2:30 p.m., on this Saturday, Planned Parenthood, 114 University Avenue there in Rochester, and then in Niagara Falls at 6 p.m. at 750 Portage Road. Want to make a big effort to get that out there today because I know we have stations, we have listeners in those areas listening to us on the Station of the Cross there, and just really want to encourage you to go out and be with Steve and the good folks in those local areas that are day in and day out there on the sidewalks praying, reaching out in love, doing what they can do by God's grace, showing up, being the hands and feet of Christ. And it's a great opportunity to go be together at the end of this 40 Days for Life campaign, especially if you've never been out there before, or if it's been a while. Maybe you used to go out there and it's been a while. A great opportunity to go out and be with the community out there. And if that's not your area, if you're in another area, well, then go to 40daysforlife.com and see what is the nearest location near you. A lot of these locations are having their closing vigils this weekend. It's, again, a great time to get out there and meet up with the community. So highly encourage that. All right, Steve, anything actually do you want to say to the folks just about getting out there right at the end of this 40 Days for Life campaign?
Well, I'm looking forward to meeting everyone who comes out. If you haven't been out, or, I know a lot of pro-lifers, they'll hear about 40 Days for Life and they'll say, I'm glad someone's going out there and praying, but I don't know if that's for me. If you've never been, this is a great time to make it your first time because there's going to be a crowd. There'll be other people. You can blend in. You don't have to be noticed, anything like that. And you can come kind of get your feet wet and see what it's all about. And I always encourage people, who are maybe reluctant to go publicly pray for an end to abortion to give it a shot. Show up once, and very rarely do we see, if ever, that someone says, you know what, that's just not for me. I'm not really up for that. Usually they feel the Lord call them back again and again and again, and oftentimes save a lot of lives in the process.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah, and you've got a chapter in here that hits on the politics. This is an area that a lot of people like to avoid sometimes, but the chapter is entitled "When It Turns Political." Really great job going through and just laying out what has occurred over the past 50 years politically. And I learned a lot going through it. I mean, I was born in 77, and so just a lot of this stuff was not on my radar. I've read different books that have pieced together different parts of this history, but you guys have done a really great job laying this out in a very short summary. But I guess I want to ask you, if people don't know, the political parties have been quite different over the years, but I guess what I want to ask you about is where we land today. Where we land today, if there's young people out there that just know the politics of today, they don't have the history of what these political parties used to be, then they wouldn't understand why someone might be pro-life, but still kind of hanging on to, well, I still want to vote for the Democrats because they have this nostalgia about what the Democrat Party maybe used to be. I mean, where we are today, it seems that things could not be more clear in terms of the stark difference when it comes to abortion. So anything, I guess, on that fact, where this is where we are today, and isn't it quite clear that in good conscience, at this point, for somebody to be voting for a pro-abortion Democrat, I know there are some still pro-life Democrats out there, very rare. I think Louisiana maybe has one or two. They're out there in some of the local races. But as a party, the platform that they've put forth, we really have to make this clear and challenge people, because if we all said together, everyone who has pro-life convictions said together, look, no more murdering innocent human beings, we have to put an end to this, no more voting for this party till they change their platform, and they got that message, I think they changed their platform pretty quickly. Anything you want to share with us on the politics?
There's so much to say about it, and one of the reasons really why we included this in the book, it's a little bit of a different type of topic, is because so often pro-lifers are dismissed. They're kept out of churches, they're left out of other discussions. They're like, oh, that's political, we're not going there, we're not getting into politics. And really, it's not that abortion is inherently a political issue. There's nothing intrinsic about the Democrat Party or the Republican Party or any other party that suggests that they should clearly be in favor of abortion. It really is somewhat of a historical accident. If you go back and you look at the history, there was a real possibility in the 70s that the Democratic Party was going to endorse a human life amendment to the Constitution, which would protect all life at the constitutional level, go around the courts, above the courts to take on Roe v. Wade. And ultimately, the Democratic Party decided not to do that. The Republican Party at the time was not particularly pro-life. Gerald Ford, who was running for president, I guess not re-election because he wasn't elected the first time, he took over for Nixon, but he was running for election in 1976, and he wasn't particularly pro-life. His wife was outspokenly pro-abortion, and just saw an opportunity there. You know what? We might be able to get a lot of Catholic and evangelical votes if we fill the pro-life void and endorse this human life amendment to the Constitution. It was supposed to be sort of a temporary maneuver to try to win that one election. Then in 1980, President Reagan became the nominee and really sort of solidified the Republican Party, began to solidify it as having a pro-life party platform. And this is all very interesting history, but what we see here is, almost every nominee since Roe v. Wade on the Democratic side at one time has espoused a principled pro-life stand, and the majority of the Republican nominees for president at one time had espoused a pro-abortion stance. And so what we really want to get folks to do here is look at the politics as simply being that, it's politics, and get to the heart of the matter of this issue, which is abortion takes a human life. And, as you said, we're not going to stand for it. It doesn't belong in either party's platform.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely, and that's the thing. I think if we could actually get past this, right? If let's say in a dream scenario, the Supreme Court comes back after hearing Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health and revisiting the Texas law, and they say, you know what? Here's the science. We're not going to kill innocent human beings. We grant them personhood under the law, and they have a right to life. And then every law has to affect that, and our culture has to change to accept that. It would be pretty messy at first, just like things were quite messy in the culture after slavery was overturned, right? Things weren't, it wasn't so easy in the culture immediately. Everybody didn't just say, okay, yeah, that's over, we'll all accept that. However, I do think when it comes to abortion, the change in the law would affect the change in the culture a great deal. As you say, there's so many people kind of in the middle that they're not super convicted really about a pro-choice, a pro-abortion position, but they're there kind of based on the euphemisms. And if the law changed and they heard the argument from the Supreme Court on the science and the reasonability of it, I think that would change a lot of people overnight, but it would be messy for a while. But one of the things that would be really quite beautiful, quite good about it is that the folks that have been kind of reviling those who are saying, well, let's not vote for the Democrats because they have this enshrined in their platform, what they would find is that those of us that are pro-life are telling the truth. Right? That if you do away with that, look, we're willing to look at everything across the table and say, okay, that's done away with now. How do we uphold human dignity across the board now that we've dealt with this most barbaric action that has been taking place, murdering children daily in our country, across the world, by the thousands every day? Now that that is off the table, I think you'd have a lot of good and wonderful political discussions at that point, as well as just a lot of coming together, I think, would eventually take place. There'd always be your hardliners, but I think that would kind of change, and abortion would eventually become unthinkable, just like slavery is now unthinkable. So we can get there. What do you see when you think about how this could unfold? Obviously, the book is out there, so we're having these one-on-one conversations, converting hearts and minds one at a time. But I guess anything else you want to encourage us in being hopeful, being positive, but not just happy talk, really real reasons that we can be hopeful and positive here?
Well, I think you've often heard the abortion lobby say, if you make abortion illegal, all that's going to do is push it underground, and we're going to have these, millions upon millions of back alley abortions that are performed in dangerous conditions, blah, blah, blah. We've heard it all. And now we kind of actually have a test case that shows that that's been a lie the whole time, which is Texas right now. Abortion has been illegal in Texas now for a number of weeks. And what are we seeing? We are seeing a dramatic drop in the number of abortions taking place. Yes, there are some women who are going to Oklahoma or to Louisiana or to other states or even to Mexico. We know that there are some abortions still taking place, but the number of abortions in that part of our country is plummeting. It is dropping through the floor. And so that is something to be exciting. And it references what you said, Jim, which is the law is a teacher. And we see the survey results. We talk to the women on the sidewalk in front of abortion facilities, and most of them say, if abortion were illegal, I wouldn't be doing this. And so it's a very powerful opportunity. Now, Jim, you had mentioned a little bit about, if the Supreme Court sort of reconfers that right of personhood back to unborn children, that would be a wonderful thing. I don't think we're likely to see that. In the best case scenario, most of the legal experts believe that the overturning of Roe v. Wade would simply send the matter of abortion back to the states. And so New York and Illinois and Massachusetts and California are very likely to double down on extreme pro-abortion legislation. We'll see states like Texas and Louisiana and Utah and Alabama will probably go the other direction. And many states, it'll sort of be, we'll have to fight it out through legislation and regulations, and we'll see where we get with that. But the fact that this issue is even coming up is something that should be encouraging to everybody, because I mentioned earlier, big tech, big finance, big media, everything is aligned against us. The pro-life movement should have been wiped off the map decades ago. And here we are with the potential to deal a decisive blow against Roe v. Wade, which would really, I think, be the first domino in the path to ending abortion in America once and for all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, everybody pray for that miracle, for that personhood to get enshrined by the Supreme Court. I know, I don't know a lot about what the great legal minds are saying. I certainly take your word for it. I don't have a great legal mind, but a very simple mind. And for me, it's how can the justices then say, just kick it back to the states and you guys figure it out, without addressing, again, the scientific question and just saying, when does life begin? When does a human life begin, and when does it have the right to life? It just seems to me they have to answer that question, or else they're just being completely disingenuous, dishonest. I mean, it's their duty to answer that question because it's a clear answer, and they would just be kind of, pretending like they don't know to not answer that question. So stay hopeful, stay prayerful, and when we get back on the other side, we're going to talk about Planned Parenthood, this great chapter that Steve and Shawn wrote, chapter 12, Planned Parenthood is abortion. For anybody who's still deceived out there about what Planned Parenthood is up to and their actions and all of this and what they're thinking, if you spend any time on the ground outside of a Planned Parenthood, you find out pretty quickly what is going on, and you learn a great deal from the folks that are going in and out and having some good conversations with people passing by and maybe some workers and things like that. And you start to look up some things. You learn real quick that this is 100% true. Planned Parenthood is abortion. But there's a whole lot of people out there that do not realize that. They've fallen for the marketing campaign, the advertising campaign, that Planned Parenthood is somehow good for women, when it's the exact opposite. So the facts and the details are there to be had, to be understood, to be shared. We're going to get into it in the next segment. Planned Parenthood is abortion with Steve Karlen right after this. In the meantime, go to 40 Days for Life. Find your nearest location. Make plans to go there this weekend. 40daysforlife.com.
Rick Paolini back with you and asking for your support for the Station of the Cross this Thursday. It's getting late, ladies and gentlemen. We need $4,613. Thanks to Anonymous from Norton, Massachusetts, with a gift of $100. Come on now, can we get a couple more gifts right now during this break? It's not that long, as you're probably finding out, so we need to move quickly. $4,613 is what we need, $4,613 to be on track, to make it reasonable to make our goal tomorrow. Again, we've broken down the day into two segments, 5,000 in the morning, 12,000 in the afternoon, to break it down so that tomorrow it's going to be a very reasonable goal to hit the full fall funding for the fall fund drive here at the Station of the Cross. A lot of F's in there. And F is for finish, and that's what we want to do today. Finish strong. 4613 is what we need. 1-877-711-8500. Come on now. Please give us a call. 1-877-711-8500. There are so many levels of giving. You can give at that benefactor level. That's $840 annually, $70 a month. Mission partner, $420 or $35 a month. Sustainer is $240 a year or $20 a month. And we've had one or two of these. Apostles Club, $1,560 or $130 a month. Please, can you call now? 1-877-711-8500. I have to go because these are very short, but you know what? Please give us a call. We can take a couple calls right now to clean this up. 1-877-711-8500. Thank you, and I'll be back. Please call.
Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with our guest today, Steve Karlen, Campaign Director for 40 Days for Life, 40daysforlife.com. Also co-author of this new book with Shawn, Carney, What to Say When, the complete new guide to discussing abortion, how to change minds and convert hearts in a brave new world. You can get it at 40daysforlifegear.com. And I do want to say on this book that it's very short, only about 153 pages, something like that. The footnotes are another 20, which tells you a lot of great references in there. You can go back and get into the source material as well. But what is so good about it is that it is a short summary, but it does give you the essentials. It is packed with the essentials of what you need to know to be able to talk about this to family, friends, coworkers, even maybe on a larger scale, maybe you can get into public debates in some way, or whatever it is, whatever influence you have to be able to speak about this. Don't we owe it to those who are being dehumanized and murdered every day to really educate ourselves on this? Isn't it the least that we can do to read a new book and keep ourselves updated on how to speak about this and how to think about this? Again, highly recommend it. What to Say When. You can get it at 40daysforlifegear.com. All right, getting into this chapter on Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is abortion. Absolutely, that's true, but there's a lot of people that don't realize it. What are the main points to drill down on with people to help convince them that Planned Parenthood is, in fact, the abortion giant of the United States?
I think the big headline is that Planned Parenthood is America's leading abortion provider. And if you look at Planned Parenthood's propaganda for much of the last 10, 20 years, you wouldn't know that. They're talking about, everything that they do except what they're most known for, which is abortion. And they've been very successful at that because Americans, by and large, do not want taxpayer funding of abortion. Planned Parenthood is now raking in more than $600 million taxpayer dollars a year. And so they have to focus on other things. They have to create distractions from what their real agenda is. But we can't let anybody forget that this is the #1 abortion provider in the country. We've got a lot of outreach to do on that front because public polling data shows that a majority of Americans don't even know that Planned Parenthood does abortions. And when many people learn the truth about Planned Parenthood, then they drop their support for it. So it's important for us to make that fact very clear. The second thing we need to do is to recognize just that all of those other services that they provide, everything else that they're up to, is, as I said, meant to be a distraction. You'll hear like, oh, well, abortion is only 3%. I think now they'll say 4% of what we do. Even the secular media's fact checkers will call baloney on that. It's a much higher percentage of what they do. They cook the books, they bake the numbers. They do many more abortions than they let on. And people say, but what about all the other good that they do? And this is where we need to take a look at it. Would you send your kids to a school that was giving an excellent education to many of them and it was physically harming others? Would you send your kids to a daycare provider? No, if a daycare provider or a school was harming your child, you would shut it down no matter how healthy the snacks were and no matter what other great educational opportunities they were providing your kids. The provision of abortion, because it kills an innocent human being, is disqualifying of any other good that they purport to do. And the last point that we really make on this topic is that Planned Parenthood, you hear a lot about special interest groups, and they wield this inordinate amount of influence on public policy. Planned Parenthood is the ultimate special interest group. They're out there, they've got a lobbying machine, they're raking in taxpayer funds, and then they're putting in huge money to lobby and to influence public policy and to get their friends elected. And this is really an abortion cartel.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well stated. And, Steve, I think I read somewhere in the book, if not here, maybe elsewhere, is it true that you did get involved in doing public debates on this topic of abortion? Is that right?
We've certainly, both Shawn, Carney, and I, just by virtue of our involvement with 40 Days for Life and other pro-life efforts throughout the years, have had many discussions, many debates, many encounters, some of them official, many more of them, around the table at dinner, at Thanksgiving, that type of thing. And so we always need to be prepared for these conversations to come up, because it's not always, an official debate with a television camera rolling or something like that. The most important of these debates take place with the people that we love. And like we said early in our conversation, Jim, most of the time, the people who are advocating for abortion are doing so from a position of having very little knowledge about what it actually is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The reason I bring it up is because I'm wondering if there's value to that as sort of a local tactic to try to develop some way of having a public debate on this in some sort of a forum. Have you seen that done well? Are there any suggestions that you would have for anybody maybe discerning something like that?
I think it's a great idea. It's oftentimes difficult to find a willing opponent in a debate like that. I can think of one that I was scheduled to be in, and 5 minutes before we were supposed to start, the abortion advocate walked out and said, "I'm not going up against this organization." And okay, it gave me the opportunity. I was kind of able to make my case, and even the abortion supporters in the audience were very disappointed in their own sides. But it really shows the reluctance to have the discussion, really shows that they don't have a leg to stand on. And this is why we see cancel culture being so prevalent right now. It's not a question of who has the right to speak anymore. It's a discussion, a matter of, are we even going to have a conversation about a particular topic? Because when people talk about abortion, they learn the truth about abortion. When they learn the truth about abortion, they reject abortion. And so I don't think there are many abortion advocates who really want that conversation to happen. It's why we see a lot of abortion facilities are unlisted. They don't have a billboard out in front announcing what they do. It's why Planned Parenthood distances itself from abortion. And so I think it's a great thing to do. Anytime we can have that conversation, it can be very effective. But sometimes the hardest part is setting up the actual debate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. All right, only a few minutes to go. You've got the floor, Steve. Anything else that you want to share with us? Any final encouragement or any points that you'd like to make?
We put this book out because, as I said, we want to give people the encouragement, the confidence that they need to discuss this matter when it comes up. But at the end of the day, this is a spiritual battle. And I think that there are as many, if not more, people convicted on the issue, more people convert on this issue by goodness and by beauty, even than by truth, if we want to talk about those three transcendentals. People are very skeptical of truth and claims to truth. And so we need to be able to provide them, but they're sort of toothless unless they're accompanied by the love of Christ that's expressed through our acts of service. One of the chapters we have in the book talks about the objections that people have to pro-lifers themselves. Well, what about war? What about immigration? What about the climate? What about, all these different issues? And I've never encountered a pro-lifer who is not also perhaps supporting the poor, who is not also, in some way serving or donating to alleviate homelessness. Mm-hmm. This is an issue that, you never, and on the flip side, you never see anybody who's serving the poor saying, well, it doesn't count unless you go out and pray in front of an abortion facility. But I mention all of this in the greater point being that when we speak the truth and it's accompanied by love, by true concern, by a willingness to go out and pray and offer alternatives in front of an abortion facility, it's so much more effective. That's why we see more lives saved than ever before in a place like Buffalo when it's 21 degrees and it's snowing and it's windy, because the heart that the pro-lifers have for these women and for their babies, no one would do that for a political issue or for this phony war on women that's discussed by the media. Only the love of Christ and love of neighbor will compel you to do that. So I encourage people, learn these talking points, be able to share them, but then go out and back it up through your love.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is true. And that's all we have time for today, unfortunately, but it's a great place to leave it because you got to get the book, What to Say When. You can get it at 40daysforlifegear.com. Get yourself equipped, and certainly, yes, keep praying and keep striving to win the battle of the mind, your own heart, and then sharing that with others, all by Jesus and his Catholic Church. Those sacraments, the sacrament of life is going to help you. So dive into it deep. And may the Lord be with you. But I do want to encourage you, get out there with Steve Karlen. If you are in Western New York or Central New York in the coming days, the next 2 days, he's going to be out there. But anywhere where you are, find your nearest location, 40daysforlife.com, and get involved. God bless you.
Rick Paolini back again, and thank you. And if I